Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Authors Up. Glad to have you this evening. We have a very special program planned for you this evening because we have a really amazing author that we're going to introduce you to and introduce you to his book as well. But as we get started, you notice that we have an empty box tonight.
Yes,
and
we do.
because our friend Ruth is not with us tonight. She's not actually traveling. She is she went up north.
Once again.
So that's why we're missing her, but we're giving her traveling mercies, and we'll be glad when she comes back to join us. But my compadre, my friend, my confidant, the amazing Victoria is here tonight. Victoria, what do you want to say to the folks to welcome
them? Good evening, everybody. And good evening, especially to you, my darling. Glad to be here one more Sunday. Of course, we're missing our Ruth. She told me when you were missing, and she told me I'm too dramatic. So, we are missing her tonight. And she said, "Oh, come on, stop the dramatic." I said, "Well, I am dramatic, and I do the same thing when you're not here." So we miss you, Ruth. Yes, I am dramatic because I miss when we're not like all together. But we're gonna have a wonderful show tonight. I'm very excited about our author, and it's a good book. Yay!
Yes. Well, we'll start like we always do on Sunday evenings, and that is with our week in review. Mm-hmm. What was happening with you, Victoria? What was going on in your world?
Work, and more work. I had some deadlines at work, and so I had to. I'm still a little bit on modified duty, a little bit. Working 2 days at home and 3 days at home and 2 days in office. But I had to adjust it a little bit because we had some deadlines going on. We're trying to wrap up, even though the fiscal year doesn't end until June 30th. Due to financial constraints, we had to make sure all the purchasing and all that was in by Friday at 5. So I had to adjust my schedule just a little bit and go on in. And you know what? I got it done. So it was, I think I did close to 50 hours this past week. Which is not normal for me, but I had to do what I had to do. And, I got it done. So, just work. I wasn't able to do much creatively. And I had plans to go back to, working on my second book. That didn't happen. And because when I got home, I was tired. But, hey, I got a new week and let's want to try it again. Let's go. I got to get to writing because and it's funny, I have thoughts in my head, but I got to get them out on paper. So, So I'm gonna try again this week. I think I'm going to have to schedule some time. We've talked about blocking off some time and structuring your day to write. I'm going to have to do that. So we'll try it again this week. That was my week. Everything all is well. How about you?
Good. Well, I went to a new place for breakfast with some friends on Saturday. And
we did.
That was enjoyable. I really enjoyed that. Worked through the week. Got a lot of health things done. Got all tests are done and just waiting for results now to see what they've got to say. But I did a lot of sorting through and a lot of how do I want to put it? Just kind of putting some things in order, places in order. I'm going to gear 8 at 8 back up coming this Wednesday.
Oh,
I had I had a thought that I may have to put some things off for a while, which I did. But before I did that, I kind of asked the morning crew and the folks who come in on that broadcast if I had to pare back and peel back and go to one day a week, what day would that be? And
hmm,
everybody said Wednesday. So I'm
wow,
coming back, but I'm coming back on Wednesday. We're not going to do
good.
Friday. We're just going to do Wednesday. But I've got some other things planned to start doing at 8 on Monday and some things on Friday that will kind of take the place of what we had been doing before. So I'm really excited about that.
I'm excited about it
Excited about
too.
seeing
I've
how
missed you at 8, 8 at 8.
8 at 8. We're gonna hang in there. I've heard from a lot of folks who have just said, we kind of miss it and want to know when you're coming back and what you're gonna do when you come back. So I'm kind of excited about that. So I was working out the last minute details on that
Oh,
last week.
good. Good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
had quite a bit of hiatus. It's time to come on back now. Time to come on.
yeah. I'm excited about it, and I'm glad that I'm coming back healthier than I was when I left.
Amen. Amen.
So
Amen.
that's always a good thing.
Uh,
But
yes.
tonight, we have a very special guest, and he's got a very special book. And Victoria, why don't you start telling us a little bit about him?
All right. I sure will. William Bernhardt is the award winning author of more than 60 books, including the best selling Ben Kincaid novels and the Daniel Pike legal thriller series. His latest release, The Superman Wars, continues his tradition of captivating storytelling that blends sharp legal insight with deeply human stakes. Bernhardt's body of work also includes historical fiction, poetry, young adult novels, and the Red Sneaker series for writers, which has inspired and instructed a new generation of authors. A passionate advocate for writers, Bernhardt is the founder of WriterCon, a renowned writers' conference, and leads writing retreats, a podcast, a digital magazine, and a free newsletter, all under the WriterCon brand. His influence is far reaching. More than 30 of his students have gone on to publish with major houses. He is also the president of Bernhardt Books, further extending his commitment to nurturing literary talent.
We've also got here that Bill's accolades include the Southern Writers Guild's Gold Medal Award, the Royden B. Davis Distinguished Author Award, and the Orell Gibson Lifetime Achievement Award. He has twice won the Oklahoma Book Award and has been nominated 20 times in 3 categories.
Wow.
He's our own Superman, I tell you.
Yes.
Beyond writing, his adventurous spirit has led him to activities like paragliding, surfing, and even becoming a Jeopardy champion. Hailed by Oklahoma State University as Oklahoma's Renaissance man, Bill's creativity, intellect, and passion for storytelling continue to shape the literary landscape. After this brief break, it will be our pleasure to introduce you to our guest, Bill Bernhardt, as we learn more about this amazing author and his upcoming book, The Superman Wars.
All right.
We'll be right back. Welcome, Bill.
Welcome, welcome,
Hey
welcome.
guys, why did you stop that introduction? I was really loving it, but
Well, I
you
tell
could
you,
have
you
gone
only
on.
got a 45-minute show. That's all it is.
Well, I didn't see
Yeah.
anything else on this paper.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, what we have read so far, I want to hear about Rydercarn, but let's get back to the Superman Wars. Well,
Okay.
first of all, we welcome you to the show tonight. Thank you for being here
Thanks
with
for
us.
having me. Appreciate it.
All right, tell us about your book.
Well, this is kind of a departure for me. You mentioned the Ben Kincaid books and Daniel Pike, and those are, of course,
Yes.
all novels. But and I have done those books on writing that you mentioned, the Red Sneaker books on writing. But this is my first time to try history and biography. The
Mhm.
Superman Wars is basically the biography of Jerry Siegel, who was the guy back in 1935 when he was an 11th grader, came up with the genius level idea for Superman, the first ever superhero. Comic books themselves were brand new and hadn't really caught on fantastically, but Superman
Right.
would change all of that. It was a wonderful idea. He came up with it. He got his friend Joe Shuster to draw it. He refined it for several years. He spent several more years pushing to get it published, which of course happened. And then, unfortunately, spent several decades trying to get back control of his own character, not to mention getting credit because his creator credits were removed by the publisher. And that went on for way too long a time.
Right.
And it led to about 70 years of litigation. That's the wars mentioned in the book title. But I do want to emphasize this isn't just about a bunch of lawsuits, because that would probably get old pretty fast.
Right.
This is about an artist trying to get control of his own creation. This is about our age-old conflict between art and commerce, which commerce always seems to win. And this is what we need to do something about if we want to have art, if we want to have characters like Superman and all of his superpowered progeny who have so enriched our lives, then we need to start treating our artists better, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. I totally agree. What were you gonna say, Andrea? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, and we're kind of going to go back and forth, Bill. We're real
Okay.
relaxed, as you know. but
Fine.
but when I think about it, I was just curious as to what made you do this now.
Exactly
Mhm.
right.
You
That's
know,
a good question. Part of it is just that I had literally written 9 legal, courtroom books, novels, but
Mhm.
legal thrillers in a row, and I thought, boy, if I have to write another cross-sex scene, I'm probably going to jump off a cliff or something. I need to do something else. And the last one, which is Justice for All, it's probably behind me somewhere, is had to do with the conflict I just mentioned, art versus commerce. And
Right.
I first started writing a set on a movie script, and then I thought, no, it'll be more fun, comic books. I'll put it in the world. I love comic books, as you can probably tell. Who doesn't? Well, okay, so there's probably somebody who doesn't, but they should, because they're fun. And I've got a master's in English. I've read everything, but comic books are still fun.
Grew up
Anyway,
on
so in
comics.
this book, I made the court case have to do with this comic book writer who was trying to get credit back for his work. I even had an artist draw, fake comic book covers. I said, make it look like Jack Kirby did a monster book in the 60s. And that's what he gave me. Of course, the covers contain clues. And when I was researching that, I came across the story of Jerry Siegel, who, as I said, created Superman, which I kind of knew before, but I didn't really understand the ins and the outs of all the litigation. And, why does it take 70 years to figure this out? And how can you get away with taking away somebody's credit? Why did it
Yes.
take so long? And I couldn't really find a very good explanation. I think that's in part because for people who haven't been through law school, trying to read legal pleadings and motions and figure out
Right.
appeals and all that stuff is just baffling. Well, I have been to law school. I haven't practiced in many years, but I can read a pleading. And so I thought maybe this is something I can do. And I started looking into that, and that just blew into this whole book. Because, who cares about lawsuits if you don't know the people involved?
Right.
So I decided this is going to be Jerry's story.
Mm.
And I really think that you did. And let me just say that off the bat. I think you did a wonderful job with this book.
Oh, thank you.
It was very captivating. I grew up, I was born in 64. I don't mind saying it. And I grew up not knowing about Superman. He was one of my heroes. I definitely thought he could leap tall buildings in a single bound, all of that.
Absolutely. Yep.
And to read the story behind it, I don't want to tell too much of the book because I want our people to, get the book. But I really felt like it was just such a good story. Oh my goodness. And to know the people behind it. And now we get to meet you. It's such an honor.
Oh,
how long did it take you to write the book?
Oh, about 2 years, or roughly 3 times longer than I thought it would take. Obviously, I mean, this is my 67th published book, but this is a whole different thing when you're trying to make this story interesting, but you can't just make stuff up,
Right,
You're
right,
trying
right.
to keep it factual
story.
and yet still interesting. So I did dozens of interviews. I crisscrossed the country going to various libraries to examine their collections, which was actually kind of fun, time consuming, but fun. And talked to a lot of people. Jerry, of course, is no longer with us, but his daughter is. And she was super cooperative with this. And she hasn't done that in the past. She doesn't. The first email I got back from her, she said, "I don't do interviews." And I thought, oh, wow, this is going to be hard. But I kept at it. And pretty soon we got some kind of dialogue going. Talked to her son. Jerry's one of his 2 grandsons, Michael too, and talked to a bunch of other people. It came together beautifully, but not quickly.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness.
And then, of course, we had to convince someone to publish it, which, I was afraid, well, maybe everybody already kind of feels like they know this story. So I asked my kids, who grew up getting, comic books for bedtime stories, and they knew who Superman was, but they had no clue that there was any
Exactly.
controversy about the creators and credit and payment and all that. So I thought, Gen Z, this is for you.
Exactly. I had no clue either.
Yeah. Or even people who aren't Gen Z. So.
Right.
That's right. It is such a real issue, though, and I recently was looking. I flipped something on television, and Tyler Perry was giving an interview about how he was working with Coogler and has worked with other directors and in helping them to understand the importance of ownership.
Yeah.
Right. And intellectual property. Right.
Right. And so that, a lot of artists won't have to have the fight that Jerry had and be in a 70-year battle.
Yeah. And it wasn't just Jerry. Of course, Jerry passed away in the 80s, but then his wife, who, by the way, was the original model for Lois Lane, took up the torch. And when she passed at age 93, then her daughter Laura took it up. And it really is a tribute to family, which I think is one of the main things that comes across in this book. Jerry lost his father when he was 17. And this has been frequently misreported in print over and over again. So let me just dispel some rumors. He was not shot. He was not found lying in a pool of blood, as has been recorded even in award-winning books of 20-odd years ago. And that was the word in fandom for a long time until, we learned better. There was a robbery. He had a heart attack. He had a weak heart. He'd already had a couple of strokes. And the point is, Jerry lost his father at a very young age, and that becomes important when later he's trying to push and sell Superman because he doesn't have anyone to advise him. He finally decides to let it be. He wanted a newspaper strip because that was the prestigious thing back in the 1930s. That was, big time. Everybody read newspaper comics, but these comic books, they were new and kind of tacky and printed on cheap paper, but he couldn't get a syndicate to pick it up. So he went with the comic books and, of course, ultimately signed an agreement which gave the company the rights to the character, all the characters in the strip, which was a big mistake. But he was a kid and he didn't know better. And he made a little money early on, but like all kids think this will last forever. Well, it didn't. He didn't have anyone to advise him on financial intelligence or investment. And,
Right.
a year later, Bob Kane will come up with a strip he calls Batman, except he's got a dad who's very active in business and has lawyer friends, and he's seen what happened to Siegel and Schuster and makes sure it doesn't happen to him. He learns from others' mistake. The fact that he had a father with business experience made a huge difference.
Yes, it did. And when I read about how they turned it into brand and selling merchandise, and they didn't get anything from it. I'm just gonna ask you this question: why do you think this is so important to still talk about today, as we're authors and things that we create? Why is it so important that we still need to have this conversation?
Well, because it still happens today. I've heard other people refer to what happened to Siegel and Schuster, because they had the first hit in comic books, called it the original sin of comic books. And I think there's some truth to that, because for the most part, Bob Kane aside, for the most part, nobody got paid very well for decades in the comic book world, even though people loved their stories, loved their art. But, if Siegel and Schuster could be canned and their names stripped off their work, it could happen to anybody.
Exactly.
So, and it did for many years, really, until the 1980s, when a woman named Jeanette Kahn took over DC Comics and started running it like a real corporation, not a back of the room deal run by some former mobsters and amateur. One person described it to me as keeping sales records on the backs of envelopes. But when Jeanette Kahn came in, she started running it like a real corporation, and she started trying to find a way to compensate creatives more fairly. And she did, but that took a long time.
And he was so young.
And there's still a lot to be done. If anything, that's backed off a little bit, because these Marvel movies have been so successful. It's shown just how valuable these creator credits can be. So now people are backing off it a little bit. But, at least you see your name at the end of the movie. You're unlike Jerry, you don't get your name stripped off your own creation.
I would have never thought that. Well, while you were researching,
should be illegal. But anyway, go ahead.
We hear about it a lot in the music world.
Yes.
But I never would have. It never, like Victoria was saying, it never would have crossed my mind that this was happening with comic books and the creation of things like that. But
well, I think, if you sell something, okay, but taking an artist's name off his work, never. That is never acceptable. And now I believe it's illegal under the Berne Convention. That's an international treaty that many nations have signed, including the United States, although not till the 1980s. Ronald Reagan was the one who finally signed on, so it didn't help Jerry any. But even if it's not illegal, it's certainly immoral and just wrong.
Well, as you were writing it and researching, was there any part of this story that affected you? What kind of affected you the most? Were you angry? And I'm sure you were. How did you feel? What were some emotions that the range of emotions that you might have felt as you was researching it?
Well, that's really two-stage. As I started gathering, there's an enormous amount of correspondence between Jerry Siegel and a man named Jack Leibowitz, who was basically in charge of the day-to-day operations at DC Comics. It wasn't called that yet, but it's the same company, in the late 30s and 40s. And, you read these letters, he is so patronizing. This is a guy who's, a pretty good business person. He's never created anything in his entire life. And he's patronizing, he's insulting. He keeps referring to Jerry and Joe as the boys, which, to be fair, they were young. But he's trying to infantilize them, constantly acting like he knows so much about business and they're so stupid. They had an employment agreement for 10 years, and yet he's constantly threatening to fire Jerry. Jerry was basically the agent for the duo. He wrote the letters, and he's threatening to fire. I can take you off Superman and assign it to somebody else, anytime I want to. His correspondence is just abusive.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
goes on for like a decade. And then to complete the story, Jerry is drafted during World War II. And while
Right.
he's overseas serving his country, for Pete's
Yes.
sake, Jack takes advantage of his absence to basically bring the whole Superman operation in-house so he can control it. And he publishes a story Jerry offered him that he rejected, which introduced a character called Superboy, which, as you probably already guessed, is Superman when he's younger. But it was a different take. It was in a rural setting, and he would be younger, and he'd be kind of a prankster, pulling tricks on people from, that kind of thing. And they rejected it. But then when he was gone and couldn't say anything about it, they ran it anyway, and it's a hit. And then Superboy becomes a regular feature, even though they've never bought the rights to the character, which leads to a lawsuit in 1947, which, they were right on Superman, but they didn't get the rights back. They were right on Superboy. I mean, the court agreed with them that had just been stolen, and they got some money for that, but they didn't get the rights back on Superman. And after they filed suit, that's when they were fired, and their names were stripped from the Superman feature for the decades. And to me, that's just makes my stomach hurt. It is so fundamentally wrong. I hear people sometimes saying, well, they made some money in the early days. Yeah, they did. So what? This is not what it's about. Money isn't everything. You take somebody's creation. Yeah, you take their name on it. That's just wrong.
Right. And how they must have felt, to see. And I don't know how I would feel if I saw something that I know I created and I sweat over it, just pour my life and my heart and my soul into it. See it become such a big thing. I'm telling you, there's never a time in my life that I didn't know about Superman.
That's right. Jerry fought for years.
Everything.
Trying to get that published. And then he finally does, and they take it away from him.
Yeah.
It's just horrible. Yeah.
Bill, before we got started, we had asked you if there was a section or a part of the book that you would like to read to us. Nobody can bring life to a work like the person who wrote it. So if you would be so kind.
Let me set this up. This is 1940. Superman is the biggest hit ever, almost automatically. His books and his merchandise is outselling Mickey Mouse for several years. He's in every department store. He's at the New York World's Fair. And in 1940, Jerry gets invited to be on the Texaco Star Theater. That's a radio show featuring Fred Allen, who at the time was a very popular radio comedian. Problem is, the boss of the company, Jack's boss, Harry Donenfeld, wants to be Mr. Superman. He's going everywhere acting like Superman was his idea. He rides an elephant in the Superman Day parade, and he appears in photographs, and reportedly, he'd go to the club in Manhattan, and Walter Winchell would say, "Hey, Mr. Superman." He started wearing a Superman shirt, T-shirt under his shirt, so he could do the rip the shirt open, and there's the Superman shield. And so at the same time that Jerry's creation is going ballistic, and they're making money off his creation, not just in the comic books, most of which he's never going to see any piece of, he's invited to be on the Texaco Star Theater. So here's what happens. Jerry's voice sounded reedy, which bothered him. He wanted to come off as an adult, a professional, but his high-pitched voice made him sound younger than he was. He stuck to the script, and as a result, did not take full credit for Superman. "Oh, you're just being modest, Mr. Siegel," Fred Allen said. "After all, you dominate a muscular marvel with a dual personality. When Superman isn't Superman, he's merely disguised as a reporter, isn't he?" "Yes, he's Clark Kent, a meek little chap with glasses." When Fred asked if Jerry is the man behind Superman, he replies, "I'm just one of the men, Fred." He then mentions Joe, the artist. And then after a break, Bud Collyer, that's the actor who played Superman on the radio show, joins as Superman and asks who the other gentleman on the stage is. "Why, I'm Harry Donenfeld, your boss. I took you off a drawing board and made a man of you. Superman is not content to be commanded. He flies Harry up into the air. This is suggested by sound effects. That kind of thing. And then he lands. A terrified Harry, who actually turns out to be a pretty decent actor, runs away screaming. Jerry could see what was happening. The radio show wanted Jerry the creator, but Harry insisted on butting in to remind everyone he was the boss. Mr. Superman, the man riding the elephant in the parade. There you go.
No, you got to keep reading.
That's enough.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
I'm like a little kid. Keep reading because you do sound effects.
You want a real Superman comic. But I hope from that snippet you can see, I wanted to not just tell what happened, but to explain why. And to understand why, you have to understand who Jerry Siegel is. So I wanted to get people inside his head. I'm writing from his viewpoint. That does not mean I made stuff up. I didn't make anything up. If there's anything in quotation marks or a block quote, it came from a real eyewitness or a real document. But
Right.
I wanted you to feel what Jerry felt so that you could understand better why things went down the way they did, which was not great.
Right. And I think that you did a really good job at that, of
Thank you.
balancing facts with the way you tell a story. And we had a comment, and I wanted you to see that. We had a comment, so we're going to read it. One of us said, "Great to see the story of Siegel and Schuster explored again. Without their contributions to the world of comics, neither DC or Marvel could have grown as big as they are today."
Thanks, David. You're totally right. You'd think they would, and maybe they were a little bit, but they didn't feel indebted enough to treat these guys better when they started to look like there was some threat to the operation. They ditched him. And even that I can sort of understand. I think it's galling, but, corporations are about making money. I get that. But to remove credits, again, that's just immoral. To trash these guys when he's just come back from the war. He's got a lot of debt. I won't go into it, but his wife didn't pay the taxes while he was overseas, and there were some other problems, and he needs money, and instead he's basically fired. Well, he is fired, and his name's removed, and they really make an effort to blackball him so he can't work anywhere else. There was no Marvel yet. There was a company called Timely, but Marvel as we know it didn't happen until the 60s, so that didn't help him at all.
There's for me anyway, it is so painful. It is so painful. And it's hard to just imagine. I mean, I have created things not anywhere near on the level of what they have done. But whenever I would run across my work with anonymous written there, I think, I'm not anonymous. I am here. And I have had people advocate for me who have found my work in different places and asked, the owner of the store, wherever it happened to be, where did this come from? They said, oh, we have no idea, and even at that level, it just hurt. And it hurt because people know.
Right.
And they know better.
Yeah, I totally get that. Now magnify that by 1,000 times and imagine you're walking down the street seeing billboards for a Superman movie or a Superman TV show, and he's everywhere, and your name is not, even though he was your baby.
Not.
It's just
all of us had maybe a Superman lunchbox, a Superman thermos.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
And that turns out to be key, though, because it's those fans who eventually do for Jerry what nobody else could do. Jerry tried, to get public opinion going, but couldn't get any traction in the traditional papers and whatnot. But by the 1970s, and even a little before, comic book fandom starts to arise. There are comic book conventions and people start collecting comic books and the prices
Yes.
start going up. And that's when people
Right.
really start paying attention, right? When they're worth something and the fans are publishing fanzines and talking to each other. And then in 1975, Jerry writes what I guess we'll call a press release. It was over 9 pages long. It's like a long rant. And yet everything he says in there is true. All the citations to the letters are dead on. And it basically is, this is what Jack Leibowitz has been saying to me for years. This is how I was treated. This is how they stole the company. This is how they stole the character, and on and on. And he sends out more than 1,000 copies of this. Crickets, total crickets. Nobody does nothing. No article in the New York Times, not the Washington Post. But he finally gets a response back from a guy who has a small comic book fanzine. And he interviews Jerry, and Jerry gives him chapter and verse on how he was robbed of Superman. And then somebody else picks it up, and then somebody else picks it up. And eventually the Washington Post picks it up, and other people on the national start, and it starts to have a snowball effect. And some great guys, comic book people. One was Neil Adams, a great comic book artist and writer, and Jerry Robinson, who was also involved in the creation of Batman, but that's another story. Great cartoonists. They take up the case and eventually persuade DC Comics to give Jerry and Joe a small pension, $20,000 initially. It got better over time, but it was about what they're paying secretaries at that time at the company, but at least it was something,
Right.
And they restored the credits finally. And
it's 7 to 8 decades.
Yeah, decades. And that didn't end the story because the Copyright Act was changed. And there was a new opportunity for them to try and regain credit and control of Superman. And that goes on till 2016. So the first lawsuit was filed in 1947, and the whole thing's not actually resolved until 2016, long after Jerry and his wife Joanne have passed.
Right.
But it is a happy ending because they got, I'm sure not everything they wanted, but they got a fair settlement and credits have been restored. You pick up a comic book or go see that movie that came out last summer. Every time you do, you'll see the credit Superman, created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, by special arrangement with the Siegel family. I told you family is important. Yeah. And it's the family that bound together and stood up and eventually prevailed.
Look at that. Look at that. Wow. I like your hoodie, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. This is the original Joe Shuster conception of the character.
Look at that.
So I thought that seemed appropriate.
And I was going to ask you.
I came in costume. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. But I was going to ask you too, like there's a billion versions of Superman, the story has changed. Which version do you think it was the most closer to what Shuster and Siegel created? What do you think is the closest version?
That's a good question. When I was a kid, Kurt Swan was the definitive Superman artist, and not to brag, but I later got Swan. I commissioned a piece of art that's hanging in a room back there of Superman, which is cool. But he was the guy. And in the 70s, a man named Elliot S. Magan was writing Superman. Many good writers were also Denny O'Neil and Cary Bates, but Magan always tried to infuse some of the real world in the stories and really get at the heart of who this character is and how he relates to his world. That's what Jerry Siegel did. When he created Superman, read those first stories. There are no supervillains or anything like that. It's 1938. It's the middle of the Depression. There's war or looming war in Europe, rampant prejudice and anti-Semitism. And that's the world in which Jerry is creating this character who in the first story he calls the champion of the weak and oppressed. So in the very first Superman story in Action Comics #1, let me see, he takes on a wife beater. He takes on a woman who's about to be executed because she'd been wrongfully convicted of murder. He takes somebody kidnaps Lois and he stops them. He takes on some war munitioners, profiteers, and that's just in one story. You know, just imagine. His idea was that it was the reverse of Flash Gordon. You know, Flash is an Earth
Right.
guy who goes to
Right.
outer space and has adventures. Superman was an outer space guy who came here to deal with our problems. And
Right.
that's the kind of story Jerry liked, the one that showed people somebody standing up, because that's what it's all about, right? Even now, standing up. That's what got Jerry and Joe their pension, because other people stood up to power and said, this isn't right.
Exactly.
You need to do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bill, I tell you, our time goes by so fast.
I know, I still have things to ask, but it's okay.
Sorry, I talked too long.
Oh no, it just goes so fast.
well into the night we could talk to you.
Okay by
So
me.
it's so interesting. It really is interesting.
It's extremely interesting, and the way that you have told the story,
Yes.
it is very captivating. It's very compelling,
Good,
and it's
good.
not something that you will easily put down. You know, and I know when I first started reading it, I said, okay, I'll read a couple of chapters here and then tomorrow, and then I thought, well, why am I on chapter 6? How'd I get here so fast?
Right.
That's a good sign.
This is so
Good.
A good
interesting.
read. It really is a good read.
Mhm.
It's very, very good information that
Thank you.
that anybody who is writing anything, anybody who is creating anything, can recognize themselves, because they do what they do because they have a passion to do it.
Right.
But he was so relentless,
Yes.
even in the creative process of just not letting it go. He knew there was something there.
Mhm.
He knew he had a key to something there, and he just kept going. He kept going.
Yeah. I
So
agree.
it's a wonderfully written. I hate to say story, because whenever I say story, I think of
Right.
something that is fictional. You know,
Right.
and this is not fiction. Let me make that really clear. But it is absolutely well done, and absolutely something that people need to know about. So I thank you so much
Thank you.
for bringing it to light for us.
Thank you.
Because
Hey,
otherwise we just would not have known.
well, thank you very much. You guys need to come out to WriterCon sometime.
I
That's
was
our
getting ready to ask
conference
about
you mentioned.
WriterCon.
Oh, well,
Please
I'll
tell
let
us
you go
about
ahead then. Go
WriterCon.
for it.
I was getting ready to ask about
Want to
that.
make sure we didn't forget. Yeah.
I have two questions. And one
okay.
is,
Mhm.
please tell us about WriterCon, and because when I read it in the bio, I was like, "Oh, I think I need to be up under Bill here." Mhm.
Yeah. Well, we have an annual conference, Writers Conference. It's always Labor Day weekend. And so
Oh.
that'll be September 4th through 7th, I believe, this fall. It's in Oklahoma City. And it has really become one of the, of course, I might be prejudiced here, but it's one of the top conferences in the nation. We had almost 300 people last year. We're going to have over 60 speakers this year, a dozen agents, several publishers, and all that's great. And you know, you need knowledge if you're going to survive in today's publishing environment. But the best part of it is, to me, you just get to, you know, come to this conference and you're surrounded by nice people who share your values, you know, your dreams, who want the same things you do. There's not going to be any grief about writing or wanting to be a writer. Everybody here is a member of your tribe. And
right. We might find our peeps. We find our peeps.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
I've never been
So
to.
that's what I love doing. We do some other programs throughout the year, a small group and whatnot. But WriterCon's the biggest event. And if anybody's interested, go to our website. It's writercon.com. Tell you all about it.
All right.
And Victoria, David is asking the question that you asked.
That was my other question. That's why I was going to put that up. David says, thanks,
Ah.
Bill and ladies. Where can we get the book? And that was my other question. How can our listeners and readers find you? How can they find the book? And how can they get in touch with you if they would like to?
Finding the book should be easy. Its publication date is April 28. Although if you're listening to this before then, you could pre-order it, or you can post-order it, whatever you want to do. I think it'll be available anywhere you get books, but it's always going to be available at Amazon and other online booksellers. So that's the easiest way. Getting in touch with me, go to my website. It's williambernhardt.com. There's a way to contact me, but for that matter, you can find me all over social media. And since Victoria was nice enough to mention WriterCon, let me say WriterCon has a newsletter too on Substack. It's once a month. It's got, instructive articles and info about publishers and agents, and it's completely free. So just go to Substack and search for WriterCon and sign up. We'll add
running
you to the list.
Running to Substack.
There you go. Excellent.
Because my co-hosts are on Substack already, and I'm so proud of them. I don't know. I haven't gotten on Substack just yet.
No. But you've got the cool background, though. Why doesn't Andrea get a backdrop like yours?
I've been asking them about that, Bill.
Is that right?
Maybe
Does
now.
Ruth have one?
No.
You're just keeping that to yourself, aren't you, Victoria?
Yep. And when Ruth rebranded us and did our logo again, I was like, "Oh, that's gonna be my new backdrop."
The good background. While we're talking, I like your theme music too. I was kind of rocking out to that in the green room.
We
That's
always
pretty
do,
catchy.
and then it cuts off, and you come and find it.
It's a good tune.
You, Bill. Thank you so much for being with us. I have thoroughly enjoyed. My cheeks are hurting from smiling too much.
Good. That's what I like to hear.
Thank you. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This has been wonderful. I really and I want to say this is one last thing because I know we're running out of time. But I read somewhere that you knew at 7 that you wanted to be a writer, and we've talked to a lot of people that say I knew when I was a kid I wanted to be an aviator. I wanted to be. To be that, I don't have a clue what I wanted to be. I was 7. I don't even remember 7, but
I was lucky in that respect because
that you had that same tenacity and just being relentless. I applaud the fact that not only have you written as many books as you've written in as many different genres as you have written them, but also your first novel was a bestseller, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It sold very well. Primary Justice, 1991. Now you're making me feel old, but okay.
Come on and join the club.
If you're going to have 67 books, then you probably started a while back, right? Or you're writing them way too quickly. No, I think you're right. I think that's why I was drawn to Jerry's story, because I can relate to so much of it. He was a precocious writer. He was getting published when he was a 1-digit age and sending out letters to magazines. And there's a reason why he had this brilliant idea in the 11th grade. He'd been working and writing all along, and eventually it sort of pays off and then doesn't, which would just be heartbreaking. So at WriterCon, many times I've said, writers, talent is great. The most important thing is perseverance. Right. And I think my life is a testament to that, and Jerry Siegel's is too.
Right.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that, because that was going to be my very last question. If you had something you wanted to tell everybody, what would it be? And you answered that, perseverance.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
I got it.
Writing is hard. It's not just you. Writing is hard, and nobody gets there quickly or in the first draft. Just stick to it. Persevere.
Persevere.
Thank you. We have learned from the master tonight. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for us for this evening. Again, Bill, thank you so much. And as Victoria always says, what do you say before we leave, Victoria?
Get the book.
Yeah,
Get the
that's
book.
cool.
Get the book. You will enjoy this one for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you all for being here. You know, we replay the show every Saturday evening at 7 p.m. So if you missed it tonight, and if you know of anyone who is a writer who doesn't know, who has enjoyed Superman, but doesn't know the story and
Right.
all the background, be sure to let them know. This show will replay on Saturday at 7 p.m. and we will be right back here on Sunday at 7 p.m. Be sure to come back. Be sure to join us because you, first of all, never know what's going to happen on Authors Up. But second of all, we get to meet the most amazing authors and hear in their own words the stories that they want to tell. Get the book. Have an absolutely amazing week. And prayerfully, we'll see you back here next week at 7 p.m. on Authors Up.
Good night, everybody. Good night, Bronze Girl.
Thank you.